Welcome to Oh Hell No with Nicole.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Oh Hell No podcast. Today I have Ryan Eccleston. He is a photographer and filmmaker, and he is calling in today from Jamaica, West Indies. Thank you for calling in, Ryan.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you about your career and your life and just, what you're doing.
All right.
So I'm going to start by asking you, when you were growing up, what did you think you would do with your life as an adult in terms of career?
Pretty much what I'm doing now, to be honest with you. I grew up in a very stimulating environment. That's because of my dad's work. We were very nomadic as a family, coming up. So we spent a lot of times in North Africa and the Middle East, traversing between the States and the Caribbean and Jamaica. So it was extremely stimulating as a child, and we'd always collect photographs, logging videotapes and stuff like that, reading a lot. I remember my father had a projector as a child that, when he would go on family vacations back to Jamaica, he would show his former colleagues or former students some of his adventures and what he saw in the Middle East.
Wow, that is crazy. So how did you get into photography? What do you think lit that fire for you?
Coming back to this childhood and also a great love for sports. I remember, collecting cards, player cards, following stats of players and stuff like that. And my parents would nurture that, and my older sister would also nurture that by buying team yearbooks, stuff like that. So it really taught me how to have a passion, for what I loved. How to go about, really nurturing, stoking that fire.
Okay. All right. So, do you remember the first time you actually took a photograph of something or someone?
Yes, I definitely do. It would go back to probably I was 18 years old. Yeah, we were on a family vacation back in the town we spent a large part of our childhood in northern Israel. I went back to visit my father because he was working there again. And between Maryland, Israel, New York, I'd be just taking pictures. And I also took a diary with me on that trip. So I think that right there was just like, hey, well, this is it,
Oh, wow. Okay. So after you take this first picture and you realize that you want to kind of follow, go in this direction with your life in terms of, artistry or whatever, how did you work to develop your career as a photographer?
Went to school.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to college. Yeah, I went to art school, a small art school in Fort Lauderdale called the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So after you finished art school, because photography is not an easy career, right?
No, it's not. And one thing to that, when I went to art school, I actually started off more in a broader sense where it was broadcasting, and then moved on to filmmaking. So in between filmmaking and broadcasting, a little after that, I started taking photography a bit more seriously. Started to actually okay, this is a part of my practice,
Right. Okay. All right. So now we're cracking it open a little bit.
Right.
So, all right. Again, it's not an easy, career to get into. So you're in art school. You find your niche or whatever, right? And you say, I love this. I want to do this. You finish school.
Mm-hmm.
What's your first job? What do you do? Are you looking to work for a paper, a magazine? Are you just freelancing? Like, what was your plan and how did you execute it?
Okay. So while I was in college, I did interns at a school radio station. And my first ever job was working in a school's radio station. Also, I just volunteer. Just volunteered. what was going on, whether it be in school, a school production, whether it be a class production. Even if I didn't take that class, I'll just jump on a production. Um, friends would just, I'd just be like, hey, what you doing this weekend? Hey, we're going down to Miami to shoot a concert or whatever, or even a church. I'd just be like, cool. I'm done with it. So after graduation, I'd gotten full time with a small production company in South Florida that I'd volunteer for. I'd just kind of get like weekend work for them every now and then. And then in 2006, I started working full time for them.
Okay, so that was like your first paying gig.
That was my first paying gig, yes.
Okay. So from your first paying gig in 2006, how did you get to the space where you are actually exhibiting your work in different locations, countries? What is that leap like? How long did that take you to get to that place?
All right, man. That for me to get to that place, it took a lot of hard work, a lot of hearing no's, a lot of trial and error. Because like in 2008, I left school for good. Like I went back to school to continue my studies in 2006 after I left my job, and in 2008, I left the state of Florida for good, and I moved on. But my father was working in Ethiopia at the time, and it was his last mission. He was about to retire, and I was just like, look, I was planning to move to New York. I was like, all right, I have a couple months. I have like a gap, 6 months. So I said, look, I'll go to Ethiopia, develop more portfolio, hang out with my dad. I just saw adventure, to be honest with you, adventure. And what came out, so the initial couple months I should have been in Ethiopia turned into almost a year being in Ethiopia. But while I was there, I was networking. So that's where the seeds were planted. And, upon his retirement, I said to him, look, I believe, I can do something here in Ethiopia. So I went back to Jamaica with him in 2009. And by the end of 2009, I returned to Ethiopia to open a business in Ethiopia, cinematography and film and photography. So a lot of material came out of that, just my experience traveling extensively throughout Ethiopia, traveling to Kenya, and so on. Um, After a certain period of time, I'd find like, let's say after 3 years, I just had a lot of raw material. And I just cold call people, say, hey, I'm a filmmaker, photographer. This is my work, portfolio, whatever. Sometimes I got no response. Sometimes I got, hey, I look at it, and sometimes I get, hey, I'm interested in looking at it. So that's where it was. That's how it started.
So when you're in Ethiopia, first of all, how easy or difficult is it to open a business in Ethiopia?
It's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, you have to go at that time. This is around 2009, 2010, and I had to kind of do a bit of due diligence between that time. So I opened it full time in 2011. You had to go in as an investor. That was the thing. So it wasn't easy, but it was doable.
And were you actually like making a living from this business over there? Did you find that it was, I don't want to say lucrative, but were you like able to survive?
I was able to survive, yeah. I was able to survive, but again, it was not easy and a lot of stuff. I mean, you have to make sure you have your savings, you know what I mean? So it was just one of those things. But I think more than the monetary side of it was just network. That was a lot that I took for. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about other people, and a lot of the work that comes out from that experience is very good, But again, I was able to manage.
Right. So you were cold calling people, just
Sure.
trying to get people to see your work and look at your work. When did you have your first breakthrough and what was it?
Hmm. My first birth. All right. I started to get work. people call me up and be like, "Hey, we saw your work," within an Ethiopian context, and be like, "Look, okay, we want you to shoot maybe our campaign, like fashion and some NGOs and so on." So I'd say that was my first break as far as like working,
Hmm.
but exhibiting, my first break, I would say, came in around, serious break would say, came in around like late 2014, 2015. Yeah.
Okay, and that's from 2006 to
Oh yeah.
2014.
Oh
Yeah.
man, it's a journey. It's a
Yeah.
journey. I mean, if I would, any advice I'd give a young artist, I'd tell him, look, you have to love it. You can't just think of it about money. You can't think about fame. Well, it's really a calling. So it's been bubbling up a lot. And what I appreciate now is that people come up to me that seen my work from 2007, 2006, coming up and be like, hey, I see you out in the world now, and I know that it's been coming a long time. So I'm really proud of you, and that helps me going. That helps to keep me going because it's really a process, and you have to trust the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, you get to the place where you're going to have your first exhibit. Walk us through
Mhm.
that a little bit. How does that all come together? Do you have to rent this place? Do you have to get sponsors? Do you have to come up with your collection that you're going to show? Do you just show a bunch of different things and there's no rhyme or reason? Like, just give us a high level walkthrough of what your first exhibit was like and what the process was getting ready for it and actually, showing it to the public.
Um, my first, all right, so I'd say it was it was pretty much an open call at first. It was the University of the West Indies were having the artistic department was having the visual arts department, excuse me, was having an exhibition. It's pretty much an open call. I said, okay, no problem. Um, I'll come through, select a piece of my work that I had, and I'll bring it there. Brought it, they selected it, said, okay, this is cool, and that was it. It was pretty much submission. And
Okay.
the exhibition, unfortunately, I was not able to make it because I'd gotten sick. I'd gotten a flu. But I'd gotten pictures from the exhibition, and I was quite pleased with it.
Okay, so basically, the school was having an exhibit and
Hmm.
you submitted your work. They accepted your work, and your work was a part of the exhibit that they
Yes,
had. Okay, so
yes, a
that's
group
one
exhibit.
way to
Yeah,
exhibit your work.
yes, most definitely. Universities, colleges, art schools. Listen, don't even look at it as if like, hey, I've been practicing art, or I had paid clients or whatever. It's really honestly, it's really you have to have a growth mindset. So I didn't care if it was a university, cool. You're getting my work.
Yeah, I mean, that's great
Yeah,
because I think that's a good place to show your work.
definitely. Yeah.
So when we talk about exhibits, there's different types. So that's one type. Now,
Yeah.
what about, have you done an exhibit where you have rented a place and you're showing your work and you're also selling your work?
I've never been a part of an exhibit where I have to totally rent the place. I've always been a part of a group or a fair. I've sold work at fairs. I've sold work at conferences. Like this past year, there was a conference called Malcolm X's Legacy at the Boston Islamic Culture Center in Boston, Mass. So at that time, I had a representative, or a PR, that would show my work for me, and people would buy. So that's one way. But I've never rented out entirely. I've never had a solo show. I've always been a part of a group show.
Do you have any plans to do that, or is that something that scares you a little bit and you're just like, nah, I'm not doing that yet? Or is it just something you just haven't done yet?
Cannot be scared. I have one life. Cannot be scared. This is what I do. So when it comes, it comes, and I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Okay.
The opportunity just hasn't come yet, but I'm grateful for whatever comes.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said that back when you were going to school, you discovered filmmaking.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you love about filmmaking and what do you want to do in that area?
Filmmaking, what I like about filmmaking is you can tell a bit, you can expand on a story more in filmmaking. That's what I like about filmmaking. They're two different animals, but they're a part of the same, if that makes sense. Sometimes the subject can speak a bit more in filmmaking. You can play with edits a bit more. So what I like to do when I do my filmmaking are visual poetry.
All right. So what do you love about photography and what do you like the least about it?
What I love about photography the most is the intimacy, and it's also low maintenance. You can just walk out with your camera. You can basically, it's all up to you. You can get things in your drift while you're doing your daily chores, while you go out. It depends. The thing is with filmmaking sometimes, even though it's getting a lot more stripped down, but when I was going to school, a lot of times you needed a bigger camera and you needed a lot of equipment. It's changed a lot since then, but at the same time, photography is just is a bit less intrusive. Yeah, I like that.
And what do you like the least?
About photography,
Yeah, like do you not like okay, I love podcasting. I love
right?
listening to people's stories. I really enjoy it. I hate editing.
Who doesn't?
Right. So,
Right. Honestly, um, I hate when I hit the wall in photography. To be honest with you, I kind of draw a blank. When there's no inspiration, it's very confining. You know,
yeah.
uh, but not much to think of what I don't like. Mainly that when I'm just not inspired, it's very frustrating, especially when you have the camera in hand. There's a temptation sometimes to force it, and you end up with a bunch of images that you're just like, meh.
So, to piggyback off of that, when you don't feel inspired, where do
Mhm.
you go to, you know, get yourself back grounded so that you can get those creative juices going again?
Read, 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 read. Watch film. Whatever you like, just continue watching that. If it's music you like, cool. If it's because the thing is with photography also is that also with filmmaking still anything creative, it's your personality that dribbles into your work. So you have to go back to a space where you feel like you know.
Right. Okay. All right. So, you've traveled to a lot of interesting places.
Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Zanzibar. I lived in Egypt for a while, Israel, Lebanon, Cyprus.
So, you travel to these amazing places. What is your favorite destination and why?
I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble. No favorites here.
No favorites? Oh,
Everybody has their own strengths. I love each of them for their own unique thing. But I will say this though, East Africa has a special place in my heart. Let's just leave it at that.
okay. All right. So, what do you see as a common thread in all the people that you meet or have met around the world?
Their humanity. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants their children to do better than them. That's just something that I've just really realized that, it's a common thread through humanity. People just want the best for their family. You know?
Nice. All right. So, let's talk a little bit about your work. So, I looked at some of your stuff on your website and let's talk about the percentage. So, where were those images captured?
They were captured in, I think it spans four different countries: Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda.
Okay. In your caption, you wrote, there are lives that need to be lived by everyday people doing everyday things, and sometimes these things feel like worlds apart. What does that mean to you?
Well, what that means to me is that it's easy for us to watch CNBC, Bloomberg, CNN, and hear a story of, well, Kenya is going to grow at this percentage per year. Tanzania is expected to grow at this percentage. Um, Growth in Ethiopia is this. They missed the mark, or they made the mark, or whatever. Their numbers: 9%, 3%, 4%, 10%. But at the end of the day, everybody, life goes on. For the common man and the common woman, I want my child to go to school, get an education, do better than me. Um, my mother is sick, my father is doing well, whatever. It's, human stories are in between these numbers. And sometimes it's easy to kind of get lost
Yeah.
with these numbers.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So portraits. What do you love about portraits?
Um, it's a moment in time, you know, it's a moment in time. They always say because honestly, your face is probably one of the most sensitive parts on your anatomy. So, sometimes the eyes reveal the soul or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, it's just a moment in time. It's the intimacy to it that gets me.
What makes you want to take a picture of someone? Like when you're walking by and you see so many people standing in a place,
Sure.
what makes you single out that one person? Is there any one thing or
No,
vibe, energy? Like what is it?
it's a vibe and an energy. It depends. It could be shoes. It could be a story you're telling between someone. It could be even a mother and son, mother and daughter, father and daughter. It just depends on what's going on at the moment.
Mm,
And yeah, sometimes even when I look, it's kind of it's a bit obsessive sometimes because sometimes you see even how this green looks towards the sun, and this is going on in the background, or sometimes there just even a story, you know,
yeah.
people watching a game, something, people going about their business and stuff. So
So what message do you hope your portraits convey?
man is man, woman is woman, humankind is humankind, and if I can use my talent to help people to understand that we're all on this planet together, and life is finite, so if my work can be used to break stereotypes, or some stereotypes, if I can if during my lifetime my work can be of service, I'm very pleased with.
Yeah, that's great. So here I am, East Indian immigrant. Tell us a little bit about that.
All right, that just came from a passion that I had. It just kind of came out of nowhere, but it became a passion. But it kind of came where here in Jamaica, you know, we have different ethnic groups. Even though it's a black majority country, but we do have different ethnic groups. And I think the second or third largest is are people of East Indian descent. But I think that the representation throughout the society is not that great. As far as like television, photography. Yes, we take it for granted that we have people of East Indian descent that are Jamaican. We have intermarriage. That's cool, but these are the little things that I don't believe that we should take for granted. And I think that representation is key. You know.
Yeah, I love those images. That's really nice. So, the last one is From the Womb to the Tomb. Tell
Oh
us a
yeah.
little bit about that one. That was
All right.
very interesting.
It's about hustling, man. It's about hustling. It's black market, and well, the word black market is a bit harsh. People are trying to provide it, and it comes across where the guy in the street selling um, water to fruits to everyday goods in a stall, not registered with the company's office, and they're just making money. And he or she's just trying to make a better life. But from the womb to the tomb, people sometimes run business enterprises from the day they decide to do that to the day they die being not registered. So from the womb to the tomb.
Right. Okay. So, along your travels, if you can say this without getting yourself in trouble,
Sure.
who is the most interesting person you have met, and what did you learn from that encounter?
Man. Most interesting person. There's so many.
But the one, like sometimes, okay, you meet a lot of people, but sometimes there's this one person and this one story that just sits with you, you know?
Hmm.
So we want to know.
It has to be one person.
Okay, I'll give you two.
I'd say the hyena man in in this place called Harar, Ethiopia. He feeds wild hyenas. I think that's probably like one of the most otherworldly experiences I've ever had in my travels. You know, um,
I not to cut you off, but I think
sure.
I saw that on one of those like National Geographic or one of those shows like that. There was some man
Yeah,
that was coming out and giving food to these wild
yeah.
hyenas. It
Yes,
might
ma'am.
be the same man.
Yes, and just how casual he was just like I'm just like, oh man, this guy. This is just one of those things where I was like, if I was back in Pompano or back in Fort Lauderdale or back in Kingston, I told people this, they'd be like, boy, you're out your mind.
Right.
you know.
So did he reveal how it's such a calm situation where that exchange can take place without him being attacked or
Yeah, he basically said that it went on for centuries in that specific town, and that the hyenas were somewhat used to that arrangement, and it was passed down from father to son.
yeah.
It's not anyone can just go and feed the hyena, but also at night in that specific town, it's hyenas become like deer. You see them roaming around at night, so it's just like super interesting.
Yeah. That's I watched that on TV. Look at that.
I feel blessed. I'm really grateful to have these experiences.
Yeah. Okay. So did you have another one or you're good with that one?
Um, I'd say my godfather. My godfather is no longer with us. His name was Mahmoud. He's Egyptian. He was Egyptian. Lovely person. Always had a big smile, and he helped us a lot when we were living in Egypt. So I'd say my godfather Mahmoud.
Okay. Do you feel like you're living a purpose-driven life?
Most definitely.
Right. And what do you feel like your purpose is?
Storytelling. Storytelling. I mean, I I'm thrilled anytime when I do a new story or so on, and I bring it to the fore. People are like, I did not know that. Like for instance, like there's a old tradition here amongst the East Indian community called Use, which is like a carnival. And when I've been doing that for the past 3+ years, so whenever I present that work, people are like, I can't believe this is in Jamaica. So that's why, like, when people say, I can't believe that's in Jamaica, or sometimes they'll be like, where is this? Is this somewhere else? I was like, no, it's right here. Yeah.
Nice. What do you sacrifice to live the life that you live?
Mm, I'd say probably my own family. I mean, having a family of my own at the moment. But I spend a lot of time with my my family now, where I don't have a wife or children. So I'd say that's kind of a trade-off.
And do you not have that because you know that you're chasing your dreams and it requires you to be able to go when you need to go and, do your
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, it would be unfair. So, let me be the best that I can be at this right now, and then I'll come back to be the best I can be at that when the time has come.
Listen, I respect that. I think it takes, a selfless person to say that and be that way. I think someone selfish might do it the other way, you know?
Hey man, this is real life. This is a business of life. You have to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I was like, okay, cool. If I'm going to be a father or a husband, I'm going to be. I'll never stop being a filmmaker, photographer. That's just the thing. But um, I'm sure by the time that comes when I do get married, it would be and have children. It would be in a way where the family comes first. Right now, it's not a conducive environment for a child, especially.
Right. Okay. So, what three things are you the most passionate about today?
People,
People.
people, culture, um, the human condition, how it takes form in any form, the human condition, whether it be wealth, poverty, religion, tradition, travel, food, the human condition.
Okay. Earlier, you gave some advice to anyone wanting to pursue this type of career, and you said that you really have to love it and
Mhm.
not do it for money. Is there
Right.
anything else that you would like to share with someone who is thinking of pursuing photography or filmmaking?
Yes. Guard your craft, guard your talent, nurture it. You know, what you waters grow. So do not be complacent with it. You know, try to grow constantly. Um, be a better businessman or a better businesswoman. You're going to take knocks. You know, you're going to lose money because, you know, sometimes we kind of fall in love with being an artist alone or being a creative alone and be like, hey, you know, money is a corrupt or whatever. But money isn't everything. But when you come to a certain point, you have to be responsible and you have to start earning. So when you start earning, you have to be serious about it. You know.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Mhm.
But before we let you go, this
Sure.
is the Oh Hell No podcast. So you have to share an Oh Hell No moment with us.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So tread lightly. We don't want you to get in trouble.
Yeah. 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 Man. All right. A whole hell no moment.
Yeah.
Would be there's so many. Wow. Would be the first time I was going to Harar, and this was like normally a 9 hour drive from the capital Addis Ababa,
Mm-hmm.
but we had car troubles because, you know, me and my friend we had gotten the car, but the car was not up to par. So what would normally be a 9 hour journey got us into the night. We were supposed to leave like in the morning and get there like in the evening, which is like, I mean, afternoon, late afternoon, probably like 4:30 or so. We ended up being on the road so late. We didn't get to Harar till about like 11 at night. And I remember the car had problems like in a small town where there was no electricity.
Mm.
And we got out in like the pitch dark. And this guy was came out the bushes and he was chewing this thing called cut, which is in some places they consider it a drug, but in Ethiopia, in East Africa, not so much. It's more a tradition where it's an upper. They're green leaves. So you know, he came out the bush. He's like, "Look, man," you know, he's speaking to me in Oromo, and which is another language in Ethiopia. So I noticed my friend wasn't paying attention to him. So I was like, "What is this, man?" So when he left, my friend said to me, the guy was like, "Hey, what is the problem? Have no fear. Whatever problem you have, I can solve it." And I was just like, man, that's that drug talking. You know,
Yeah,
okay.
that is an Oh Hell No moment.
Right. But you know, good thing, you know, everything worked out. But I remember I look back on these things and I laugh. I was like, man, you know, this is a whole hell no, for real.
Yeah. So during these travels, do
Mhm.
you know in Africa, do you have you ever felt like uncomfortable, not safe? Do you feel like it's fairly a safe place to travel around? I mean, I know that whenever you're not home, you need to, you know, pay
Yeah,
attention and not be foolish, right? But
yeah. I mean, each city or town or even country within the continent has its own dynamic. So, for instance, like when I was living in Ethiopia, people be like, man, you know, with a normal trope. And again, that's where I see a lot of my work coming from to kind of break these tropes and stereotypes sometimes, which is sometimes people would see something happen in Congo and then ask me, you know, if I'm okay. And I was like, well, that's a Congo, it's like really far away from me. And, so but the thing is, when I was in Ethiopia, it was really safe, you
Mm.
know. When I
Mm.
was in Addis, it's really safe. And, you know, Tanzania has its own thing. Tanzania is really safe. Kenya is a different dynamic. But for the most part, I have a lot of friends and colleagues in different parts of East Africa, especially, and also Southern Africa, Western Africa. You just have to, you just have to do your due diligence. Don't be silly. Like anywhere else, you can
Right.
be mugged in New York City, So
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
I'm a P's and Q's sometimes in Miami compared to
Yeah.
some African cities or even Jamaica. It depends. It's the
Hmm.
variables. Any urban center almost carries the same thing, the same dynamic, just in different ways.
Yep.
So just be smart, be a responsible adult, and you should be all right.
Right. Okay. All right, Ryan, tell everyone where they can discover your artwork and
Sure.
find you.
All right. So my website is thmvic.com. My Instagram is the Maverick Iconoclast. That's on Instagram at the Maverick Iconoclast. Um, yeah, that's pretty much my online presence so far, and I'll be also showing at Miami Art Bazaar. So, Nicole,
Okay. Nice. All right. We will definitely look out for you.
thank you so much.